morning, everybody. Hey, y'all. Hey, it is once again time for our weekly get together. I hope you've grabbed that cup of Joe. It's time for our Hey, y'all. Hey, morning rodeo show. Look at me. I can't even talk because I haven't had my coffee yet. It's the radio show, not a rodeo show. Hang on with us for more than 8 seconds because here we go. I'm
Yeehaw,
Elisa,
yeehaw.
Country
Woohoo!
Mama
Hey,
here,
y'all. Hey.
and I need caffeine this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And I'm Ann from Andale Homestead. So happy to have you all here.
Good morning, everyone. It's Casey, and I am also on the coffee struggle bus, but we will get there. We will get there together, friends.
And I'm Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Thank you guys so much for coming in to this Tuesday morning show that we all basically raced to get here, I think.
We did. I'm saying, wait a second, it's Tuesday?
I know, right? It's so
day
funny
it
because
is?
on Monday, I'm like, oh, Monday. And then Tuesday morning, I'm like, wow, okay, it's Tuesday morning already. No,
You know, I think I'm a little confused on where I am in the week because we had a really bad storm blow through last week and we went like 36 hours without internet. And so it was really strange here on the farm. And we've had that before, but we were just kind of looking at each other like, what do you want to do? It's like we didn't have any form of self entertainment as far as like games to play or anything. I couldn't check any of my social media for the longest time. I've got so many little videos. They're just sitting there like with the little spinny wheel of death on the phone that's like, I'm going to upload whenever I darn well please because there's no internet. So I don't even know what day it is, let alone what time it is or what radio show this is. Rodeo, where did that come from? How are you guys doing this morning?
I was about to say the spinny wheel of death. I love that title.
well, I was
That's
going
right.
to say, I feel like we've all had some, we all have a lot going on anyway. So this has been, it's interesting that we did this episode with episode 15, I think was what we just had up. And it was kids on the homestead, right? So yesterday's podcast was kids on the homestead talking about how to get everybody involved and a little bit kind of spinning off of episode 15 where we talked to Troy from Bar Run Forge at, the generational homestead. And I thought episode 15 was pretty good. We talked about giving kids different chores and jobs and really connecting with them, whether you have grandkids or kids from maybe your church group or whether you have your own kids, whatever it is, you can get your kids involved. My niece comes over here and she'll check out things. And my sister and my niece and everybody over there have been sick at their house. And my sister ran over here last week to grab some. I had some extra like little homeopathies she wanted to come get, and she got herself together and she's like, we need to get out of the house for a second. So she ran over here on Thursday. And as soon as my niece got here, the first thing I did was I was like, Selah, you have to come look at my garden. So like my niece is literally 7. And I like ran her because she's always taken interest in that. And so I immediately, like I saw my sister, I'm like, hey. And then I was like, Selah, you have to come. And so I took my niece out to the garden and I showed her all the things that are growing in my fall garden. And it was like so funny because I just reminded me of this episode and being able to show our kids and have them take part in it. And she's not obviously my kid, she's my niece, but man, it's just awesome to be able to share the things you're doing on the homestead with your kids. And I thought it was a really good episode. So I was, really excited about that. We have so many things going on around us, and it's nice when you can take time to kind of just breathe and do that. So
That's right. That's exactly right. I know that my grandchildren, when they come to visit, really look forward to doing all the normal day-to-day chores that we do. And they think it's fun because they don't have to do it very often. So it works out great that way.
It's
yeah,
true. It's
They
true.
also,
It's just like everybody talks about how great it is to go to the snow, but when you live in it every day for 6 months out of the year, it's not so great.
that's
yeah,
right.
that's
But I'm
true.
looking forward to our first snow, but that tornado warning on Friday, that kind of threw us for a little bit of a loop.
Woohoo. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I
Everything turned
bet.
out okay?
Oh yeah, our little miniature donkey CJ, his name is Captain Jack because he has one eye that has eyeliner like Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh,
He lost his shelter.
oh.
And so we do have something set up for him for the winter, but it was sad to come home because I was out and about and see things blown everywhere. And we lost our apricot tree and it actually twisted and broke and snapped and fell over on the chicken coop. But luckily everybody there is okay. And the day before that, we had a storm blow through and we lost a big, huge limb from our big black walnut tree. And I thought, oh, I'll just go out there. I'll drag that out of the way. It is super heavy. And even Papa Jim can't even move it. He goes, I'm going to have to go out there with a chainsaw. He goes, I didn't realize that branch was so big. So we haven't even been out to the grove. Who knows how many trees are down in the grove? But it's kind of like, I'm going to say this, I might upset a few people. I don't know. But it's been like a redneck Christmas over here at the farm because we've got stuff from everybody.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw. You go out in the morning, it's like Christmas out there. You've got people's chairs and people's umbrellas. You've got all kinds of stuff from farms. Who knows how far away? And I don't know if you guys remember from before, an episode that we had before where I was sharing where we had a big storm blow through one time and my duck pond was gone. I just had a little kiddie pool out there for the ducks.
Yeah.
It was gone. And I found it 4 miles away.
Oh my word.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember our prior co-host Lisa, she's like, how do you know it was yours? Well, because it had certain brackets attached to it, to hold the hose. And
Okay.
Oh,
it's
wow.
not like everybody around us. I mean, my nearest neighbor's a mile away. It's not like everybody has kiddie pools. And this one had specific things that Papa Jim had rigged up, to make it for the ducks. 4 miles away. That kiddie pool really saw some stuff before it came back
I
down
was
to
about to
earth.
say it went on a good travel, didn't it? Went on a good,
It
nice little
did.
trip.
So a little bit of excitement when we get that kind of weather around here on the farm. Kids or no kids.
Well, it's funny because I tell the kids that the pools, I always tell the kids, make sure that if it's going to storm, we fill those kiddie pools up. So I always fill them up to the tip top before it even rains. And the kids are always like, what, Mom, it's going to rain. It's going to fill it up. I'm like, I do not care. I do not want it blowing everywhere. If I can barely even move it when it's filled, you're going to fill it up now. So that way maybe the wind won't move it either. So
Oh, yeah.
Smart
we've
idea.
never lost any of our baby pools yet.
I was about to say that is smart.
Yeah.
It's those simple things that we really don't think about. But
Well,
we
the
could
kids
get
always
the
think I'm a
kids to do
dummy,
it.
but
I'm pretty sure on Friday I saw a chicken fly by the front door. And not
Oh
of
my
its own
goodness.
volition either. It wasn't flapping its wings. It was like as it went by, it was like, help!
No, speaking of chickens and animals flying, I have to tell a funny side story, and this is totally off topic, but our female turkey has now learned that she can fly,
Okay.
and that well, she did learn yesterday that she is not one of the geese that fly south for the winter. Because after she flew, I mean, she was flying a ways, and I was like, all right then, girl, bye, see ya, I'll get another one. And then when she got to the ground and saw she wasn't in her little cage, she was like, whoa, wait, I didn't want to do all this now. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, help me. But yes, I was standing out there and I saw, like Alicia said, I saw a turkey flying right on top of my head. I said, oh, okay,
My goodness.
well, farm life.
She says, I've made a terrible, terrible mistake. This is
Yeah.
not what I wanted.
It's not better out here. My cows do the same thing though. They don't fly, but they'll go through the fencing, and then the minute they get out there, they're like, "Oh, never mind. I didn't really want to be here.
Right.
I thought it was better on this side, but it's really not." Especially when they find they're in the street and it hurts their hooves to be on the road, and
Oh,
then they're
gosh.
like, "We don't want to be. I don't really want to be here. Can I get back over there?" But then they can never figure out how to get back into the fence.
Oh,
So
my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. Some animals are just stubborn that way.
We have guineas.
That's a nice way to put it.
And guineas are so entertaining, but they're so brain cellless. I want to say it without being too horrible.
Oh, gosh.
Because they will fly over and then they pace for hours back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to try to get back into where they need to be. And you can open the fence for them and say, okay, girl, get on back in there. And they will pace to the edge of where the gate is open and then go back the other way. And then come, and then they're just in this frantic, they will not cross the threshold to go back through the gate. But they will actually run little trenches down into the ground because there's such worry warts because they got to get back where they want to be. And as soon as you throw them back over, you finally catch and throw them over. 5 minutes later, they fly back over and they're back where they're not supposed to be again.
Oh,
So
no.
they're in need of getting their wings clipped.
We don't have guineas, and that might be why. But
guineas are
okay,
also pretty loud, so just
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
I was
Oh,
gonna
there.
say.
I don't think your neighbors would appreciate
My
them, Miss
neighbors
Ann,
would not appreciate guineas. No, they would not.
but I love them.
So getting the kids involved in the homestead, I am so thrilled. I do have one grandchild, the middle granddaughter, Millie, that is my little gardener, and she loves to have a garden in her own home, at her own home. But we have started hydroponics for her, and
Oh,
she
fun.
is just tickled to death. She's such a good mama to her plants. So that's a lot of fun. And for her, she's not a real veggie eater, but she is a veggie grower. So that's fun.
That is a lot of fun. And speaking of the grandkids and involving them in the garden, I have a little section of land here on the farm that I dedicated for the use for our granddaughter that lives here locally. And I put up one of those candle panels in an arch and put a little bench out there for her and put little things up. And it started out as a tea garden because I would take the little shepherd's hooks and hang little teapots that I would find. And so the teapots would look like they would pour. So if it would rain and they'd get a little bit of water in there, they would pour. But then also little birds would start building their nests in them. But then I started planting things for her, and I planted those little sugar snap peas. So it became her pea garden instead of her tea garden. And that was the highlight of those times when she would come over, or when the other little grandkids would come over. They would not run for the candy jar. They would not ask if grandma baked cookies. They would run out to the pea garden so they could pick the sweet pea, the little sugar snap peas, and sit on the bench and eat them. And so that is a wonderful thing for getting your kids
Oh,
involved
how
on the farm, is
sweet.
to have a little pea
That's
garden.
precious.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
great.
almost like how you see those little green bean teepees that people will put up for the little kids, or the circle of sunflowers, and they can kind of go when it's like in their own little place.
Mm-hmm.
She loved it because it was her own little sanctuary, and she had the peas as well. And she would come over and tend to them and eat, I don't know how many peas, but I'd rather have her eat a handful of peas than have a running around with a sucker in her mouth.
For sure. For sure. Well, I find that kids usually try new things when they help get them in the ground, or at least they help plant them, or they help nurture them. At least my kids will. My 7-year-old, he doesn't do anything that he doesn't really want to do. But I find I think that's just the thing about being the eighth child.
I was about to say that's mini Eric, right?
Yeah, that's mini Eric. He just doesn't do anything that he doesn't want to do. I mean, it's even like hard some days getting him to do schoolwork if he's not feeling it. I'm like, well, we could do this and then you can do other things. But no, when he gets his hands in there, I mean, I watched him plant dill this year, and I was so proud of him because, he can take it or leave it. Most things he could just care less about. And I said, we're going to plant some vegetables, plant some, herbs. And he helped me plant some dill plants, a bunch of it. And let me just tell you, when those dill plants got to be taller than him, he was so excited. And I had a little short on it, and he's standing there and he's separating, and he would literally just pull the dill off of the plant and shove it in his mouth. And now I won't
Oh
even
my
do that.
goodness.
And I said, no, you didn't. And then he says, well, that's what Dad does. But
Oh,
because he sees Eric eat, different things in the garden, he'll try
yeah.
the herbs, he'll try those things. He started doing that. And it was just cool because he took ownership over it. He said, well, I
Right.
planted this.
Yeah.
And he was so
Right.
proud of it. And I was like,
Nice.
wow, that kid, a 7-year-old, just shoved a handful of dill in his mouth. I was like, oh, what are you doing? But he was like, it tastes kind of good, Mom. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you
It
like it. And you
does.
can certainly spit it out if you don't want it anymore. But he's willing to try the herbs that I hand him. He's willing to do that because I think he really does take ownership in there. So yeah, it's pretty
That's
cool.
so
I have a
awesome.
similar memory when my kids were little. It was very, very memorable. A little more harrowing though, because it was when we were in the store and my kid was shoving grapes in his mouth. And he says, but Dad does it. And we had a lot of explaining to do to security that day.
Wah,
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 wah.
wah.
No, you'd see Dad eating grapes in the store, and then the kids are starting eating grapes. And it's like, what are you doing?
Oh
I'd
my
rather them
goodness.
eat it right fresh out of my garden.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, speaking of close calls with security, I think it's time for one of our subscriber comment call-outs, right, Casey? After that little flat note on a joke there.
It's time for
Do-do-do-do.
Subscriber comment Call out! Pew pew pew.
What can I say? I haven't had my
Okay.
coffee yet.
Okay, so our first comment call out today is from Laramie Downton. Dowton. I'm gonna say it like Downton Abbey, so that's why I'm like in my brain here.
Say
But
it
I
with
know. I
British
thought I should
accent.
have like a British accent as you say
I
it. Or
know I'm gonna have to, but I'm not good at that, so I'm just gonna stay
me
in my
either.
stick in
She's
my
gonna sound
wheelhouse.
Australian if she tries.
No, it's bad. We can't do any of that. So so Laramie posted this really beautiful post, and it really resonated with me. She talks about as being in charge of your family and your food and all those things. It was really important. And she said, you have to, as the prices go higher and higher, packages get smaller. Most of us can't just extend our budget. Instead, you have to get creative, and some tips on how she feeds her family of six on $500 a month compared to the average of about $1,300 a month, according to the USDA, on
Okay.
her low cost plan, according to the government. So she gave a bunch of tips, and I believe it's actually 6 different tips on
Wow.
how you can do that too. And she asked if anybody had anything else they would like to share. And I thought it was really great. I mean, there wasn't a lot of sharing, but there was enough that people were offering up their tips, and I love it. I mean, the post, I won't go through the whole thing, but the first one was purchase ingredients instead of pre-made foods. Every month pick up one thing to just stock up on. Learn how to use your spices and herbs. Also stay
Right.
intentionally frugal over cheap. It's important that you just don't look at short-term meals for today, but also looking for, you know, being intentionally frugal over just being cheap in general.
That's right.
And then staying joyful and taking the time to see the blessings in the storm. And yeah, this time right now in people's lives can feel like a storm when you're running on empty, when your bank account has $10 left and you still have
Yes.
10 days to go. And
Yes.
it can get really hard. Um, and so, yeah, I think that this was such a cool post, and I just absolutely loved it. I was really thankful that she posted that, because it really can help you see things in a little perspective. And
Yes.
I mean, is there anything you guys would add to that post? Any tips that you would add to beyond what she encouraged people to do?
She's done a wonderful job, in my opinion, to be able to share some basics and things like that. Um, you know, I, it, we all try to be as economic as possible. And sometimes cheap is not the way to go as far as certain products or whatever. But in the last few years, it has been the first year that we had a garden. It was we ate everything that we grew, and we didn't really preserve anything.
Hmm.
And then my heart was breaking because we still had things that we were taking off that we had to throw away, or they just stayed there until they rotted. Excuse me. And so I learned how to utilize the herbs that you're growing. It's not just fun to grow. What's important is it's fun to use it, to preserve it, to freeze it or can it or dehydrate it, or the possibilities are endless. And it made me feel a little bit like Pioneer Girl,
Uh-huh.
to go back to
Right.
our roots and think, this is absolutely amazing the way that, or how spoiled I have become to try to go back to. It's a little more work, but with some good planning, it can all be done. So,
Hmm.
Well, also I think she's normally in here, but Gail from Gail's Southern Living is kind of like the coupon queen.
yes,
And that's one thing that I'm very, very big on is couponing and all the different type of apps that you
good for
can
you.
save different deals on. Me and Monica are good old Fetch friends.
Oh my
If
gosh.
if you
Yeah,
haven't heard about Fetch, we will leave it in the show notes after the show.
for
But
sure.
they were showing this was yesterday, and of course it was it was World Food Day. Um, that there were Barilla pasta, and I don't normally buy pasta that much, but I buy some to stock up. But if it was buy two for $5, okay, and then you had 75% off on one app, which I think was called Applo. I'll leave it in the show notes. Don't quote me right now. And then it was
Oh gosh.
$1.25 off on Fetch.
Oh,
So basically, you were getting 2 boxes of pasta for a very cheap price, and then you had the regular Kroger. I don't know who has Kroger, if you're listening, but here in the South, we have Kroger.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Kroger was another 75 cents off for their hand hard copy coupon. So it does take some hunting. You do have to like
it does.
do your grocery list and say, okay, now where can I look for coupons? Gail is wonderful about saying where you can find coupons, different sites. Go check her out. But that is a way to save money long term. Uh,
Yep.
and
Yes.
short term is
Mhm.
couponing.
Mhm.
And you do have to buy bulk, but I'm a big proponent in buying bulk anyways because I feel
Sure.
that saves money again in the long run. It may not look like it up front, but over the months you'll start to see a decrease in your bill. If you say, "Oh, I'm going to buy, 25 pounds of flour this month," and then you don't have to buy flour for 4 or 5 months. So that's
Right.
bringing your flour down if you buy it. Just an example. What about you, Monica and Alicia?
Well, one thing that I've always done, and this is something that I have really tried to get a lot of my friends and family to do for years and years and years, is take $10 out of your food budget whenever you go to the store. And like is mentioned here in the post that we're highlighting, find that one item that's on sale and stock up. And I used to do this all the time when we lived in Southern California, and my entire garage was like a little mini grocery store. I had big cabinets full of food. And I can remember how great it was because I can't grow olives, but I can remember how great it was to go out and have a pantry full of olives. So
Right.
if the olives were on sale for $1 a can, I'm going to stock up on $10 or $20 worth of olives. Do I need that many at this moment? Nope, but I got them in the pantry. Same with the
Right.
pasta, same with anything that is shelf stable. If you check your circulars that, either come out online or on paper, before you go to the grocery store and just search through it and find that one item or two items that are really marked down to a good price and stock up on it. And speaking of pasta, I did that the other day because we had at our local little store here, it was 10 for 10. So they were $1 a piece. And then there was another coupon, like if you bought so many, you got a jar of pasta sauce or something with it. It's like, heck, I can do that. The one thing I
Okay.
didn't like is I couldn't reach them because they were on the top shelf, and I asked the manager for help, and she's like, "Oh, well, here's some spaghetti, and here's some. Oh, let's give you Angel Hill pasta, and we'll give you this." She goes, "Because we have to make it fair to the other customers that they can get what they want to." And I was like, "Heck no! Load me up with the spaghetti. Don't tell me what I'm going to eat." She walked away. I put the Angel Hair pasta back and put all my spaghetti back in. But load up on those things that are on sale at the time. They're not going to go bad on you. We had
Right.
another coupon just now where it was if you bought $10 worth of produce, you got a really big, I think it was 32 ounces of cottage cheese for free. But it was limit one per customer. And I already had more than $10 worth of produce in my cart because I was getting some things. And so I put another little head of celery in there, and I divided it into two. And I said, "This is my brother's order. Ring that up separate." So
Oh,
I
there
can.
you go.
So you can go through the line more than once if you're already there and you're already going to be purchasing
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah.
I had $10 worth of produce for me and a thing of cottage cheese, and then I had a $10 worth of produce for my brother and $10 cheese, or a free thing of cottage cheese. And then when my husband was helping me load up the car, I told the kid who helped me out with the groceries, I said, "This is my brother."
Oh,
You're feeling
poor
guilt.
Papa
I
Jam.
was
You're
feeling
feeling
guilty.
guilt.
Poor
They don't
poor
care.
Papa
It's
Jam.
okay.
They really don't. But that's a good point, Alicia, is join the certain little reward programs that your local grocery store or the grocery store you're at has. At Kroger, there's the Kroger Plus card, and Kroger will send you coupons
Yeah.
that are kind of comparable to what you normally buy. But kind of like an alert. I hope everyone is listening with Kroger, if you want good manager specials, this is the first thing that I do when I go to Kroger is I look at the meat, the cold manager special or clearance area, and I look at the canned goods and bread clearance section. Is that Kroger, because they get their orders delivered, their food, their trucks on a Thursday, on Wednesday is when they mark everything down or manager
Yes.
specials.
Okay.
So if you are listening, our people that are listening in the chat, or if you're listening back on replay, heed this advice. Try to go on a Wednesday. And you know what's funny is we used to call Wednesday Blue Hair Day, the old folks'
I
day.
was going to say Wednesday is senior day. Worth and I look forward to Wednesdays. Thank
Well,
you.
you know that Georgia does not do Senior Day anymore.
What?
They took that away. There is no Senior Day and there's no double coupons. I know,
Mm.
Georgia, we're just wonderful.
Equality for all.
Yeah.
Equality for all.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but Wednesday is when they do these manager specials. And listen, I'm a big Mexican food fan. I love Mexican food and cheese dip. And the cheese dip is expensive. If you find it in the store, it's almost $6 now.
Right.
Oh my God.
I go and I found one time that they had a mark to 75 cents. And I looked like a fat kid and I do not care. I loaded all 6 of those in the clearance section in my cart.
Mhm.
I
There you
probably
go.
got some eyes at the checkout, but who cares? I have cheese dip for a while.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, working those specials, and we only have one grocery store in our little town. The rest of them are 30 to 45 minutes away,
Mhm.
something like
Same.
that. So when we go to another town or wherever, if they're having some certain specials, we do pick them up. That's rare, however. We try to grow it or purchase locally most of the
Right,
time.
right.
But our little Food Lion, we do have the Food Lion membership card, and our little Roses that we have also has Senior Day on Wednesdays. So shopping the specials, when you talk to other people that have retired that live on Social Security, they'll go, "You'll figure out when they have the early bird specials and the manager specials, and you'll figure out all those things around your town." And
They should send out a brochure or something like, hey, you
honestly,
just joined the old people club.
yeah,
Here is all the things you must know.
it is work, I'm telling you. But I do need y'all's help in the coupon deal. And I do have Fetch, but I'm terrible at it. I don't understand it. It's technically beyond my thought process.
Oh, it's so
And
easy.
well, I mean, I do scan my receipts, but then I don't know what to do with what I have, and so I do need some help in that.
Oh, we'll have to show you on that one. But,
Okay.
well, it's funny because this weekend we were at a vendor event and I met a lot of people and we talked about how the economy really is has been difficult for people. And people are
Yes.
we're at a vendor show, so you obviously are wanting people to buy from you, all these other vendors. But it was one of those opportunities we had as a homesteading group. We were there for a homestead. I was there also for 31, so I was kind of like destashing some of my things. And I
Sure.
would tell people, look, you're walking around and you're hopefully shopping for Christmas. Hopefully you're taking time to shop for other people and be able to pour into them. That's what I did. I did shop a little bit for myself. Eric, if you're listening, I did buy some earrings. But I did buy for other people too.
Whoops.
But one of the things that we kept telling people the most was I kept talking about all these wonderful things that I use on the homestead. And I constantly referred to like the Amazon and, going to Amazon and shopping. And now I'm an advocate for local, always buy local, always small businesses, always, always, always.
As
But when
much
you
as you
have to buy
can.
from the bigger stores and you have to buy from the online shops, I
Right.
do use Amazon, but you also can find the specials. You can find the lightning deals. You can do those things. And one of the things I was telling people about is stop wasting your food. It's a big deal to me when
Right.
people waste food. And
Yes.
in order to be frugal, and one of the ways you could add to this post was don't waste. And so and remember that, think outside of the box, because just because you didn't grow it doesn't mean you can't can it. So
Absolutely.
so many people are like, oh, well, I can't can anything because I don't grow anything. Well, it doesn't mean that other people don't grow it. So you go to those farmers markets or you go to the specials and you go to
Mhm.
Kroger. And when it's on special, you buy the snot out of a pile of jalapenos and you take it home and you
Right.
get yourself some vinegar and you pickle a bunch of jalapenos.
Right.
And you can do those things. And yes, it may take a little more time. And maybe it's not worth it in the end for you because you can buy a, 50-cent jar of jalapeno that are pickled already. But you can actually customize the food that you're eating to be healthier for you
Yes.
if you're canning it yourself, if
And
you're
you know
taking the
what's in it.
time
Yeah.
to not really waste those things as well. So when you make
Mhm.
a big pot of chili, don't put it in your refrigerator till it goes bad. When you make a big pot of soup, because we all know we do it, y'all know you make big pots of soup and it gets cold and everybody makes soup and then you waste the soup. Somehow that soup goes to
Agreed.
waste. Don't waste it. Put it in your jar, put it in the canner, and get it on your shelf so you can have it later. And that's a way to save money and a way to really pay attention to being frugal and not just cheap. It's a way to be smart about it.
And
That's right.
it's funny that you mentioned chili, Monica, because I made a big pot of chili. And Papa Jim came home on a cold day. It's when we've been having all of these cold winter storms hit. And he says, "What's for dinner?" I said, "Chili and cornbread." He's like, "Yum."
Yeah,
He
it's
comes
great.
home. He comes home the next day. He goes, "What's for dinner?" I said, "Chili and cornbread." He's like, "Okay." So we had chili and cornbread. Woke up Saturday morning. He goes, "What's for breakfast?" I said, "Chili omelets." He's like, "Okay, I've had enough of the chili." So my chili is going to get a boost of some additional beans and some tomato sauce and juice. I'm going to beef it back up,
There
bring
you
it
go.
back to level, and then
Mhm.
it's all going in my Nesco pressure canner, and then I'll have some chili on the shelf. I'm hoping to get between 4 to 6 quarts out of what the
Oh,
little
wow.
concoction I'm going to come up
Ooh.
with and put it away. Oh, Mama, it's like Monica with all of her kids. When I raised 4 boys, I cannot get out of that mode of
Gotcha.
cooking for a big family.
Yeah, it's hard.
Okay.
It is. It's very hard. And so when I go to make, a pot of spaghetti or a pot of chili or anything like that, that big stock pot comes out and it goes on the stove and everything goes in. And it's like a big old chili party. Everybody in. And then there's chili for days where it didn't used to be that way.
Okay.
With 4 kids, 4 growing boys in the house. And so now I need to start canning it. Like Monica says, don't let it go bad. Get it in your jars, get it on the shelf. And now when we have these winter storms come through, all I have to do now is just grab a jar. And I think Papa Jim will be very happy about that because then I won't be making enough to feed an entire army.
Right.
Right.
And side note on that, my youngest will not eat spaghetti now. As a grown man, that's the one thing he has for his wife. He's like, "I do not eat spaghetti. Don't make it," because he's sick of it. It's a childhood trauma for him.
Oh, no.
I love canning the soups, and I think I do not have a larger family like Monica or Alicia, but I still cook like I'm feeding 12 people, only
Okay.
because I was trained by Monica, the leftover queen,
There you go.
to pressure can it in your Nesco.
Yes. Oh,
And
yeah.
to have for convenience, because even during the winter when you're either working on a project maybe outside or inside or whatever it is, and then you come and you're like, oh darn it, I forgot to take something out of the freezer for lunch, or I don't have any fresh lunch meat, or I didn't make any peanut butter from my Augustin Farm peanut butter powder. You can grab one of those jars of whether it's taco meat or whether it's the soup, pop it open, heat it up, and you have lunch. You have a homemade lunch literally in minutes.
Yes.
And I
That is
showed it on the
phenomenal.
screen while we were talking because other programs, like Monica was saying, to look at where you can get from us here on the podcast, if you like us enough, is that there is Amazon Live. And it's a big thing now that you can go on. It's live. It's
Woohoo.
easy. You can pick all these different products from any of your influencers that you like.
Mhm.
I did one on Augustin Farm because we are influencers with Augustin Farm here around the hay bale. And that's another wonderful thing each month that you should try to stock up your pantry, kind of bringing it back around to our comment call out.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. And I see there's a comment from our listeners about canning chili that it's like, I'm afraid to do that because of canning standards. Monica, do you want to share just a little bit before we move on about canning chili? Because, we
All right,
are a little bit
where
of a
is it?
rebel.
Where
So
is it?
that
So I
Flintstone
can.
girl put it in the YouTube chat. So honestly, I am probably too much of a rebel for most people, but if it has meat in it, I can it for meat times. That's all I do.
Yes, I think that's kind of like the standard for soups.
That's it.
Soups and
If it has
meals,
meat
do
in
your
it, you
meat.
can it for meat times, and if it doesn't, I probably still can it for meat times because I'm a little bit of a spaz rebel. But I don't ever have anything without meat in it. I mean, I just don't.
Yeah.
Everything I can has meat in it almost, except for tomatoes. If I'm just canning like tomatoes or something like that. But then you just do it for whatever it would be for tomatoes or whatever. But
Right.
you always can it for the longest time
Right.
of the items that are in it. So if you just had a
And
recipe,
most meat are 90 minutes.
yeah, 90 minutes
Right.
for the quarts and 75 minutes for the pints. And that's
That's
basic
right.
standard right there.
Right.
And that's kind of what I have written down. I just, as soon as you open up I have a little a cabinet that I have with some of my spices in it. And in the inside of the cabinet, I literally have the paper and it says 75/90 from, and then it says dash meat. And that's all and that's my reminder. So I open it up and I look and I'm like, yeah, 75 and 90 for meat. Okay, got it. I've got pints. I'm going 75. So you just look at all your ingredients. And if there is meat in it, go for the longer canning times.
There you
Yeah,
go.
and because it's dense, I'm going to go for the longer canning time anyways. But that's why I'm going to add a little bit more of, the tomato sauce and juice, kind of make it almost like a soupy chili. So it's not quite so dense when I put it in my jar, and it allows that heat to get through. And I'm going to put them in for 90. My Nesco is going to get a good workout today and tomorrow because it's getting loaded up with chili.
Yeah.
And also making your chili a little waterier, I guess that's how I would say it.
Soupier, a little bit more saucy.
You can thicken it up after you reopen it and reheat it up. Sometimes it will thicken up. That watery one will thick up.
Oh, do you guys want a
in the
trick
pressure
on how
canner.
to thicken up your chili?
Tell us, friend. Tell us.
Oh my gosh, because I used to work at a little place that used to make chili dogs. And she would serve up chili dogs, and to stretch out her food dollar. See, this is great because it kind of flows in what we're talking about. To stretch out her food dollar, she would throw in a couple handfuls of instant oats. Throw a couple of handfuls of instant oats into your chili. It thickens up the chili. They swell up and they take on that chili flavor. It's almost like a meat substitute. You add it with your meat, who cares? But it stretches your chili dollar out.
Huh. Okay.
And you don't even know it's in there. I bet you guys have gone out to places and had chili and didn't even realize it has oats in there. Oatmeal.
No. I have, luckily or blessedly, I have learned to dehydrate all my tomato skins. And so when I chop those up, what is it called? Grind them up, whatever. Then you can use those. That's a thickener as well, tomato skins. And so that helps and puts flavor right back in it. But I like the oats idea.
Oh yeah,
What a great
just a
idea.
handful. Just a handful or two. If you're making a big pot of chili, throw in a couple handfuls of oats, and you'll be amazed. Nobody knows. And Flintstone Girl says she bets lentils would do the same. I think they would, but they're going to be. I wouldn't do the lentils unless you're going to have a chance for them to like cook because they're going to be hard. If you, let's say you make a pot of chili and you've got enough for your family, but the in-laws popped over and you need to stretch it out a little bit, that's where you can throw the oats in, and the oats are going to be ready within just a few minutes. The lentils might take a little bit longer, but they would certainly be good in there. And you could do the same with if you have some prepared quinoa, you can throw some quinoa in. But the great thing about the oats is you don't even know they're there. You can fool people that way and stretch your food dollar.
Also, one thing that I do to thicken the chili before we go on to our next comment call out, because we love talking about cooking and food, y'all. We just do. We just love it. But my favorite thing to do, and it's very simple, is to do there's 3 different ones: flour, cornstarch, or semolina or arrowroot flour powder, and do a slushy, I guess is what you'll call it, of that.
Ooh.
And it thickens up. It's equal parts 1-to-1 of your thickening agent. You don't want to put just the thickening agent straight in there because it will get clumpy and nasty and gross. Yes, slurry. Thank you. Slurry, if I can talk today. But you do 1-to-1 of the thickening agent and your water and mix it up and then pour it in there. And within like 5 minutes, it thickens up. It thickens up pretty fast from that. But you don't want to can thick stuff. I try not to, but again, I'm a rebel like Monica. So I kind of do whatever I feel like I want to do. With guidelines, of course.
Well, within reason. Yes. Within reason.
I'm not getting too crazy, but on to our next comment call out, because we have another one that kind of is an interesting talking point, and y'all know we could talk for hours on end. So I'm going to pop this one up because this will be a fun one, even to hear some of y'all's comment in the comment section. So
it's time for
subscriber comment call out. Pew pew pew.
Okay, so this was a really good one, and I was thinking
I really liked this one.
Maybe you guys could all start us off. Let's see. A friend asked me this, and it sparked an interesting conversation. So, how do you personally cope with the mediocrity of life? Casey, how do you personally cope with the mediocrity of this life? And this reached a lot of people, and there were some comments and there was some, feedback, but how do you do it, Casey? What do you do to cope with all this?
You know, I would say, especially because I'm one of the newer homesteaders, so it really hasn't gotten too bland, brooch yet.
It's always
Um,
bland around here.
but I will say I live every day to the fullest, and the one thing that I love to keep the mediocrity from attacking me is I have things like this. I have the podcast that I do. We have our YouTube channels. I think that truly keeps homesteading interesting for me because it can get very repetitive. We all know you get up, you let out the chickens, you let out the turkeys, you check the garden, you cook breakfast, you probably clean or do some laundry or do an assignment outside or can or bake. And then you go and you feed the chickens and turkeys and you put them in for the night and you come back and repeat, sleep, repeat. But I think having little like side hustles is the way that I keep it spicy in the homesteading life, is having this where this keeps all four of us very, very, very busy. So it's always an interesting, especially when we're shooting unscripted. It keeps everything spicy and fresh. So that's what I say. What about you, Alicia?
I'm the only one in our group here that lives up here in the tundra of snow country, and so it does get to this routine throughout the warmer months, and then slam, we're hit with this snow, and then there's days I don't even leave the house for days and days and days at a time, and so I understand what Brooke is talking about. It becomes very, very redundant, and so one of the things that I do, and it really helps with my ADHD brain, is I'm always trying to find new little craft things that I can come up with. And, YouTube is your friend. My son keeps telling me this. YouTube is your friend. Go on YouTube and find something that piques your interest. And it's something that you can start learning. You're never too old to learn. Never pass up an opportunity to learn. So, whether it's going to be crocheting or knitting or learning how to make soap or making candles or anything along those lines, painting, there's all kinds of things that you can just set aside a little bit of time in your day to learn a new task, learn a new skill. And it doesn't even have to be craft related, it could be DIY home maintenance related. They're just little things that I do throughout, especially the winter months, to just try to keep my brain occupied and my hands busy. 'Cause if my hands aren't busy, the food's going in my mouth. Hey, you could learn different things to bake. I have an entire cake decorating kit that my husband bought for me because I wanted to learn how to do cakes. I want to bake cakes that look presentable. If I have a birthday to go to for a grandkid or something, I want to bring a birthday cake. I want it to look, like what you see on Pinterest, those Pinterest fails. I don't want it to look like a Pinterest fail. I want it to look like the real thing. So I have the
Not a Pinterest fail.
Oh, some of them are so sad. Like a beautiful little lamb. It's adorable, and then it comes out and it looks like the lamb's been hit by a truck. But I have the whole thing to learn how to do the cakes. I got the little spinny tray, so it'll spin around and all the tips, all the stuff. Now, I've been diagnosed as being a diabetic now, so I have not made the cake with all of my homemade frosting to try it. But someday maybe I will. But just finding a new task, and where to begin homestead just said they just started learning how to make cheese, and so that's a wonderful thing that you could utilize in your homestead setting. It doesn't have to always be homestead related, but it's great when it can be. And so just find those little things to keep your mind and your hands busy, and that will help you. But I'm going to confess right here, I'll say it, especially living up here in the snow. Come March, after it's been months and months, I do get what is known as seasonal affectiveness disorder. I get sad because your brain just can't take that downtime so much. And it really does have a chemical response to your body. And you do become depressed if you don't find something to do. And the first couple of years here on the farm, I actually, would go to the doctor and say, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm weepy. I'm crying. I sleep all day. It's this it's this months and months and months of being shut in the house in the snow. It's called seasonal affectiveness disorder. And so you have to learn how to reprogram yourself to find new things to do so it doesn't become so prevalent. I still get it almost every March because I'm ready for spring so badly I can't stand it, but I'm learning different ways to cope. So, this might be something that Brooke is speaking to that, after so many months, especially if you find yourself on a new piece of property where you are isolated from other people, it starts affecting you. And so, sometimes you have to take those field trips off the homestead, off the farm, and actually go mingle with people. Find a book club, maybe even if you have to drive 30 miles into town, find a book club or a church group, something that you can have socialization because we have to have some type of fellowship. Jumping off my soapbox.
What about you, Monica?
It's obviously helpful that I have all the kids here. They help keep it not so monotonous, but I will say that it does seem to, I feel very much that oppressive feeling when the sun starts going down earlier. As a matter of fact, so today's Tuesday. Let's see, just Monday. No, it was Friday last week. On Friday evening, Eric and I we were spent. He was ready to go to bed and I was ready to go to bed, but we knew we had a vendor event. So I was getting some things done and I got everything done. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's only midnight. Normally we would have been outside until 8 p.m. We would have been getting all these things done. But because we had all come inside early, we were all ready for bed by like 8:30. At least Eric and I were. We were so done. And even by Sunday this week, we came home from our day out and we just constantly are going on the weekends. And it was 8 o'clock. It was like 8:05. And I looked at Eric and I'm like, is it time for bed yet? And he just looked at me. He was like, it's only right after 8. And I was like, yeah. He was like, oh my gosh. And the kids were like, yeah, can we watch a movie or do something? And I'm like, no, it's 8 o'clock. And so even last night he looked at me, he said, we're going to bed early. We're going to practice this. Let's get in bed. Everyone in bed before 10 p.m. Because that's early. That's an early thing for us. Like our kids just stay up late. They get things done in the evening. We have schoolwork. We do things in the evening. And having it go dark earlier it can be hard, but I will say that that's something that we've kind of battled with having the kids. It helps a little bit for that, but I am doing things like, Alicia said, where you try to teach yourself a new skill, you practice new things. And like you said, Casey, just find other things to get involved in and do. And, I'm trying to teach myself to embroider. I'm going to be embroidering some things. I bought a couple kits and I'm going to be working on that for some Christmas presents. So I am really going to get back to being mindful of what I'm buying for Christmas presents this year for my family. And I'm being very intentional. And I am going to be making some of those things this year, much more than I have in the past. When we lived on ministry, when we did full-time ministry 21 years ago, we were full-time ministry people. We had 2 small children and Eric and I just, lived on whatever we raised, whatever was donated through the church. And I will say that was a difficult season in my life, but I was thankful for it. And I look back on that now with even a more gratefulness and a grateful heart, because I know that anything that comes our way now, I can always get through because I know that the Lord brought me through that. So I'm trying to be really intentional about making sure that my family sees that it's not about what you buy or what you get. It's about how much love is poured into that particular item. So I think that's how I'm kind of getting through this monotonous and the mediocrity of all of it, is really just being joyful and doing it that way.
Well, I know both you and Casey are watching Little House on the Prairie, which I've been wanting to ask how that's been going. But, look at what
Yes.
they did in the evenings when all of the chores were done and the sun had set and they were gathered around the fire. There was always something to do. Pa had his fiddle, the girls had their sewing,
Mm-hmm.
mom had her sewing. There's always something to keep your hands and your mind busy. And so finding those new little tasks that are joyful to the heart, that's what it needs to be. It can't be just something to pass the time. You have to find the joy in it. And I think embroidery is a wonderful thing to pick up, Monica.
It really is. It really is. I'm so proud of you, Monica. Okay, girl, you better embroider.
Well, I haven't done it all the way yet. I pulled the kit out and I looked at the kit and I was like, this is so beautiful.
Step 1, check. You
I'm
pulled
going to put
out.
it back in the box now and do it later when I can focus. So I put everything back in the box. Because I have to I have to focus though. Like I have to look at the PDF.
Yes.
I have to I have to like trace the design. I have to like put the little like wheel thingy on. Like I don't know any of the terms.
The hoop.
Yeah, the hoop. I got to get the hoop, but like I have to look at the video to know I have to learn the actual like, little stitches and stuff. But I mean, look, I used to cross stitch when I was a kid. I mean, I was like the 9-year-old that was like going on like 50. So I was the 9-year-old that was like cross stitching all this stuff when I was a little kid. No joke. Like I was cross stitching like you would not even believe. So I know how to do that, but I want to learn the little embroidery thing, and I know it's not going to be easy, but it's something I know that I can do. So I'm gonna do it. So yeah.
And you're gonna enjoy it.
Yeah,
You really will.
I was about to say, I thought I was old when I decided I wanted to learn how to start sewing and knitting, and I'm going to be doing crocheting once I actually find a free second. But
And he's
at
a
least
natural. He is natural. He's a natural at crocheting because
I am.
he and I
I'm a
sat on the
natural
porch.
natural grandma at doing it.
I love
He did really great. Now he doesn't give himself enough credit because he picked it up. I thought he was messing with me when I was teaching him to crochet last year when we got to sit on his porch and spend some time together because he picked it up real quick. I thought, you've done this before. You're messing with me. He's like, no, I didn't.
I really haven't.
So
I did
he's
knit,
good.
so I know it's kind of not really the same thing, but it's along the same lines. But to answer your question, Alicia, Little House on the Prairie is going amazing. I don't know where Monica is, so I won't talk too much, but I'm already on season 3.
We're not that far.
I know, I'm a quickie. But it actually gave me an idea that I'm going to be sharing with my co-hosts off live that I had. And if this idea pans out, we can all thank Alicia for it.
It's always my fault.
No, it's just, it truly is heartwarming to sit down and watch a show that is good quality family television. Because even the quote unquote family shows now have a little bit of cringy moments where you're like, not the Little House doesn't, because
Oh, it
some of
has
the
a
things,
few.
some of them are a little like, oh, that is so cheesy. But it's because our brain is wired now to think, oh, that's not sweet, that's cheesy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can reprogram ourselves to say, you know what, sitting around the fire as Pa is playing the fiddle, that's not cheesy. That's what they did. That was their family time. Instead of turning on Netflix or turning on, I see somebody just mentioned Netflix.
But then he said going onto a YouTube video like the Holler Homestead before going to bed. So if you've been watching certain shows, you need to decompress or change that type of mindset. Go watch something a little more wholesome.
Right.
And that's a great idea, is watch something a little more wholesome, a little bit more slow, maybe something to relax you a little bit.
And I learned about there's an app now for your TV. It's called Freevee, Freeevee.
Yes.
And instead of purchasing all the different apps that you have to watch now, which is crazy to see the shows. Like my 2 shows that I watch are The Chosen and Little House on the Prairie right now. Those are my little obsessions. And you can watch them there for free. And of course, it's through Amazon. And who would have thunked it that Amazon has yet another thing that is super popular and has all the right stuff on it.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's great. It's really great. And since we're almost out of time, I wanted to throw this one in. When Monica pitched this one comment at our morning meeting, I really think it was important for us to share it. So I'm going to do one more call out before we go. So there we go.
It's time for
Subscriber comment call out. Pew pew pew.
I love it. I really do. Okay, so for those of you or anyone else that's out there, those of you that are feeding all flock, okay? So it says, Dina said, we have chickens, ducks, and a goose all on all flock. Does anyone have a recipe for fermenting the all flock to make this last longer? And only one person really gave an answer, but it's still relevant, and I think it's great. And you basically, it's super easy to do. All you do is you add some water. Now we just use the hose water. I'm gonna be real honest. We use the hose water. Okay, so I'm sure it's chlorinated, but you can definitely use non-chlorinated water. But our poultry knows what they're getting with us. Okay. They're going to get real. So we just use the hose water and it works fine. And we cover the feed as well. You go a little bit higher. They say 2 inches. That's kind of what we do. We just eyeball it a little bit. You're just going to go a little higher. And we use enough. Depending on what you use, how many you have, because she didn't say exactly how many chickens or ducks. I do a 5-gallon bucket. The kids really do. And they fill it a little more than halfway. And then they fill the water up a little further up. And then they just basically watch it go. Now, here in Texas, this can ferment basically overnight. But you can do the multiple buckets. There are so many YouTube videos on how to do this. And there's a really great channel in particular that I'm going to call out because she's an amazing, amazing chicken lady. And I don't know that our friend Rich does this, but I do know that Dahlia from Chickenlandia, she does it, and she is fantastic. She shows you how to do it on a small scale so that you can kind of make it a bigger idea. But she does do the all flock, I believe, and I love that. And I just think it's wonderful that there's some you can look at that as a channel and stuff. So all flock is going to be one of those mixed. It's not just a pelleted feed, I believe. I think it's
ours is pelleted.
Is it just the pellets or is it the mixed stuff?
The stuff that the all flock that we get from our local feed stores, it's just the pellets. So it's going to swell up, it's going to take up the water and then ferment easily.
Okay, that's
We've
perfect.
done it with the all flock too.
Yeah, we do.
Even if you're going to do something that has the mix that has maybe some whole oats or some cracked corn in it, it's still going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. So it's good to know because I've seen all
now,
flock.
what does a chicken parent do if their flock? Because this is my flock. Of course, I'd be the one to have the bougie chickens and turkeys. Do not like pellets. They like crumbles.
You can do it with crumbles too.
Do they have an all flock crumbles?
I don't know.
You can found one.
I mean, I've seen lay pellets. I've seen lay pellets and lay crumbles here. And then we get the lay stuff because it has a little bit higher
so do I.
Okay, so Casey, your flock doesn't like pellets. Ferment it. If you have to get all flocks, you can have the higher protein for the turkeys that are mixed in with your chickens, let's just say. Ferment it. It's going to soften it down. It's going to turn it into a mash.
Yep.
And they'll love it. So they don't care that it's pellets or not.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's because if
personally
it can
don't
save
buy
me money, that's
crumbles.
what I'm wanting to do.
I
mean, our turkeys eat anything, so I'm not worried
No.
about them.
Sometimes I'll have the guy at the feed store will load me up with crumbles. It's like, take it back. I need the pellets because it's so windy here. They just blow away. I'm feeding everything but my chickens. So I have to have the pellets.
Yeah. So I really wanted to get this question in because I have been wondering that. I know me and Monica were FaceTiming, I guess, a couple weeks ago about my turkeys, and she was saying about the fermenting, and I was like, I really need to do that. And of course, I haven't done it yet. So this was a great way, Dina, to spark my mind again to do it. So thank you for leaving that comment.
Yeah. It's a really good idea too, because it does actually, talking about being frugal, it does actually help take your dollar a little longer. And I know that we ferment our feed for not only our chickens and ducks and our poultry flock, but we ferment our feed. Yeah, turkey farm right there. See, I ferment for my turkeys, and so does Casey now, hopefully. But we use it for our pigs too. Our pigs love it. So fermenting your feed is a really great way to have this last a little longer.
And it's good for their gut.
Yep, it's good for your gut, and you get more bang for your buck. How do you feed crushed shells mixed with food or not? I've seen it both. I just feed them separate.
Yeah, I crush them and I throw them out there.
Yeah, you just kind of toss
they
them.
love them either way.
Like you're sprinkling seeds in a garden. Actually, don't do that.
Like a pretty princess. Monica likes to throw a pretty princess.
Yeah, you just scatter them out there like your own little house on the prairie feeding the flock. Scatter it.
And I haven't had any problem with feeding the shells back to my girls and then having them like eat their own eggs. They don't do stuff like that. They don't care. They just eat the shells. They're happy to get them.
Yeah.
Brampton Gardner wants to know, do you zhuzh all of your shells like that out to your chickens in a ball gown, Monica, like a pretty princess?
I retired the ball gown. It gets too muddy at the edges. So no more ball gowning for me. So But I do wear my crown, so I will wear the crown. I just don't do the ball gown anymore.
Well, I wear my ball gown, so I guess that's all that matters on this homestead. You guys do what you want to do on your homestead. It's all about making it a personal experience.
Folks
making
probably
sure that
think
it's
I wear a ball
joyful.
gown on mine, but so it's
Oh,
all
I
right.
want to see it. I want
She just
to
has to-
see it.
Eric wore the ball gown over here. No, he would never wear the gown. He would lose his mind before he would put his foot in a ball gown.
Yeah, yeah, not at all. I'm gonna put that on there so when Eric watches it back.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us here today. This hour actually went really quick. We only got a few of our subscriber comment call outs out, but we'll have more for next week. So make sure that you keep posting to the group if you belong to the group over on Facebook, and we'll call you out in a good way, and we'll share all of right, and we'll share what everybody has to say about some of these great topics to help you help yourself on your own little homestead. So, for all of our co hosts here, I'd like to thank you again so much for joining us. Have a wonderful week. We will see you next time. Don't forget our podcasts drop on Mondays, 9 a.m. Central. Make sure you catch those. And then join us every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Central, here for the radio show. So, until we see you again here on Hey, Y'all Hey, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time.
Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Oh, we're really fancy now.
Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central.